Welcome, Ryan. Welcome to Fortified. How's your day going?
Thank you. It's going. Just another Friday and feeling good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you. Where in the US are you based?
Currently, I am located in Kansas, the state of Kansas, right in the middle of the United States. So
Okay.
I spent 28 years in Japan. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's the best thing about Kansas? What is the thing that you like the most?
What I like the most is that my parents are here and that my kids are doing very well.
I was gonna ask, what's the thing you dislike the most?
I don't think that I dislike it. I what I would say is that the United States has changed considerably since I was young. I don't look at things as good and bad, they just are.
Yes.
But there's a lot of things that, let's just say, reverse culture shock coming back to the United States that I don't necessarily agree with.
Yeah,
And it's been difficult. I'll just say that. Yeah.
sure, sure.
Little things like health insurance and politics and all those things that I just don't talk about. Yeah.
Well,
It
it's
it
not
is what it
it's not the task for us today to solve all the problems of the United
is.
States, but I know that you lived in Japan for almost 30 years. How did you end up in Japan?
Yeah. When I was growing up, yeah, I can't remember exact age, 14, 15 years old, I got into the martial arts. And my instructor said, "Hey, you should think about going to Japan someday." And the first year of uni, I ended up doing an exchange program in Japan and I ended up loving it and ended up wanting to stay. And 1 year turned into 28 years, and it was great. And I ended up working at a martial arts hall, at a martial
Okay.
arts complex that was located inside of a shrine. And I worked there for 8 years. And I was very lucky because I got to train with a lot of amazing martial arts instructors. And I also trained with the police on the police judo team, but I got to train at that police dojo there. And I trained there for many years. And yes, I ended up, when I finished after 8 years, I ended up opening up my own gym in Japan and training a lot of people over there. And it's actually where I met my business partner. He was a student of mine, and
Right.
we ended up starting a GMB Fitness over there. Yeah.
Oh, great. I'm glad we got the chance to talk about how GMB started. I think was at least 10 years ago, could be longer, when I purchased Elements.
Thank you.
Um,
Yeah. All right. That's one of the very first versions of Elements. Yes. I
yes.
actually shot that in Australia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. In Brisbane.
Okay.
Yes.
I lived
Yeah.
in Brisbane for quite a few years.
Oh,
So,
nice. Yeah.
yeah,
I really enjoyed the time I was there. Yeah. Brisbane. I really enjoyed it.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a nice city.
Yeah.
And I also remember having a few conversations with a friend of mine who lived in Sydney, similar age. I just realized that we both 53, same age as you.
Fabulous. That's great. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry, my dog is freaking out here.
that's
There you
okay.
go. Sorry. I had to let him out. Go ahead. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we're same age. Good. Yeah.
And I've been training since I was 12. I studied martial arts, like,
Oh,
yeah,
wonderful. Yeah.
and then went down a bit of a bodybuilding gym road because I felt skinny as a for confidence as a 17, 18-year-old,
Yeah.
and then eventually found kettlebells, and
Nice.
then I learned how little the big muscles were helping when it comes to real movement.
Yeah.
And then following that strong first path down calisthenics, body weight,
That's great.
I can say that I've tried everything. And this friend of mine, who was just an amateur training at home guy, as a experienced mover, I bought elements and I brought the program into his attention. He purchased rings,
Our very first
and
official program. Yeah.
and then 2 months later, I called him and said, "So how's it going?" I'm not doing it at the moment. I hurt my shoulder. Okay. So what happened? I was doing level one. It was a bit boring, and quickly bought level two, and I was trying to do muscle ups. I said, Okay. So I brought up this story, Ryan, because this sets the tone for the whole conversation, I believe, in your head already, as much as it sets in mine when I hear such a story from a client. And I just, you're in your late 40s. This was about 10 years ago, so early mid 40s, right?
Yes. Yeah.
You don't go into muscle ups on rings without doing all the other steps. It's like going to college before you even went to high school. Probably half of primary school is missing as well.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this a little bit. How
Yeah.
people find the basics understimulating or unexciting, and that almost, I'd say 99% of the time. Let's leave 1% for chance, but 99% of the time that's gonna give them some injuries or some tweaks and some discomfort, right? So what is your experience with this?
I hear it all the time. And people still to this day, they're like, Ryan, how can you continue to do similar things over and over and over again? And they think that I am doing similar things when, yes, the movements, the foundational movements, I'm doing them. But the way that I look at it is you're always coming back every single day. When you're doing a movement, it's different. And if you can look and actually understand where your body is and say, okay, I might be doing the same movement, but what do I need today? And I think looking at it that way is so important. And so the reason I bring this up is because, just like you said, a lot of people do the movements and it doesn't, like any fitness program out there, people get quote unquote bored. And so they try and jump ahead. And the problem is that their body is just not ready for it. And there's two things that we're looking at here: muscular strength and joint integrity. And the things we both know that the muscles become stronger faster than the joints. But the problem is if you think that, oh, I'm strong enough or whatnot to be able to do these particular movements, but your joints aren't ready, you're going to get injured. And this is what we see so many times. And not just that, but rushing to get to these progressions without understanding the proper form that's necessary to do that. I think it's great being excited to do things, and I'm not trying to hold people back. But you and I both know that you have to build that foundation first. And it's about work. And this is something I especially struggle with recently, having come back to the United States in the past 3 years. And I'm not saying it's just in the United States, but I've just noticed this a lot here, is that younger people especially have difficulty doing something for an extended period of time. And I especially see this with my kids. They'll be watching a movie or something, and the beginning of the movie is boring, so they want to watch something different. I'm like, okay, it'll maybe pick up and it'll maybe get better. Let's just stay here for a little bit. Or they have trouble having a conversation that's not stimulating for them, things like that. So I think if we can understand and look at something and say, I'm going to give it at least 2 months. That sounds like a lot of time for people, but at least 2 months in a particular program to be able to build out foundational skills, I think we would all be better off. One is that I've included actually other variations of the movements in order to keep people stimulated. So it's not that they're completely different movements. They're variations of those movements so that people can work on a gradual pace, but it still feels fun and new when they're working through it. We've also included in there, and just this week, I'm making updates to make sure that I have videos explaining exactly what we're talking about. And I don't talk this much when I do it. It's a very brief video, but just simply saying, hey, listen, things are great. Keep working on this because it's going to be allowing us to get to whatever movement. So as long as a person understands where they're going, and that the better that they can get at doing the foundational movements, the easier everything else is going to be. It's going to be great down the road. I actually think that the fundamentals are pretty sexy. And the reason why is because when you come back to those and you really understand how important they are, then you understand that you don't actually need to do a whole lot of other things if you do these well, because those other things happen more naturally. And so what I like to say is that I want people to fall up into the next variation instead of just jumping and trying something and getting injured. We have a lot of people in GMB where they're working on a program, and then I say, hey, why don't you just try this one thing? And they thought, oh, I could never do that. But because they've built this foundation, because they're doing these variations, they try that thing and they're able to do it without pain and actually be able to enjoy it because they know that they can do it without fear. And I think this is another thing where you have those two sides of the coin, people who jump ahead too quickly and those people who actually don't go forward because they're scared to do something. So yeah, I went in a different direction there, but I just see this all the time. And again, I'm not trying to hold people back. I just want clients to understand that when you get really good at the foundational movements, it makes everything else easier and keeps you from getting injured, hopefully. Yeah.
I agree. And it's true for any form of art or skill set.
Absolutely. Yeah.
No famous painter, no Van Gogh or Leonardo, they didn't start with decorating the basilica. They started with
No,
some
absolutely.
sketches, most likely, on a piece of
Yeah.
paper, right? So people think that the sketches on a piece of paper are just, yeah, like you said, they're just not sexy. It's not TikTok or Instagram worthy. But
Yeah.
we're talking about men over 40, like I am anyway, but
Yes.
50, 60, it really doesn't matter. I think we should have that maturity at this age where
Yes.
we can accept a slower pace or I don't even want to use the word boring because it is
Yeah.
everything but I
Yeah.
also understand how that feels different to someone who is new to movement or new to this type of movement, and to you and myself and guys like us who have been doing this all their
Yeah.
lives. We don't find these boring. We understand how important and necessary they are. I can appreciate how some guys will go, I'm looking at the end game, my end goal, and this is not looking like that at all. And I love that in one of your videos you use the seed, but also the other metaphor with how the lilies on the pond just double every day, and then 15 days you think, oh, there's barely any lilies, and day 30 the pond
Yep.
is covered. It's the famous story about
Yep.
compounding. People forget
Exactly.
about compounding all the time. You just one day you do your workout and you find yourself in a handstand, and you didn't want to be in a handstand. It just happened.
And that's what I'm talking about. And that's what I mean by falling up. And just if more people could understand exactly what you just said, it's that compounding effort that's happening. And I just, again, the older I get, it's the more I realize the less you actually need to do
That's
in
it.
do more, in
Yeah.
order to do more. And even strength wise, okay. If we were to look at, for example, Mike Mincer was really into this. And towards the end of his life, he was saying 2 workouts with only one set of each. You have 2 exercises, pardon me, one set each. Do it as hard as you can, and then you recover for a week. People thought he was crazy. And yes, I know there's some people in science that will disagree with that, but part of me, it does make sense in the sense that if you're taxing your body in that way, doing it, yes, strength, building strength, that's great. Skill work can be a little bit different, but to me, it's similar in the sense that doing skill work doesn't mean that you have to do 100 different variations of something. To me, it's find the variation in the beginning that's going to allow you to do all of that stuff, like you said, because you've spent so much time working on this. The compound effort allows you to be able to do those things. And so this is why, for example, like in elements, first do the bear, the monkey, frog, and the crab. Do it every single day and just do it for 15 minutes. Do it for 2 weeks. And don't even think about anything else. Unfortunately, not a lot of people want to do that in the way that I suggested. But if I had a private client and they were like, hey, Ryan, I really want to move better right now. I'm like, okay, cool. And they want to do a bunch of different stuff. I would say every single day, bear, monkey, frog, or crab. And then I would actually only say 1 minute a day. So that's 4 minutes. It's 4 minutes every single day, and do it for the next month. If they could stick with that, it could completely change the way that they move over after a month. And then they could start doing whatever else. But again, it's difficult for people to stick with things in that way. And so this is why when I first went to Andy and Jarlo, and I said, guys, I've got this idea for this program, and it's only 4 moves. When I started building elements, it wasn't because I wanted to start with the bear, monkey, frog, or crab. What I was doing was I was looking at the in things and saying, we have all these people who want to do handstands. This guy wants to do press handstands, handstand push-ups. People want to be able to do this. They want to be able to squat this particular way. So what I did was reverse engineer it and look at, okay, what would be the bottom where, oh, wow.
That's magic.
Magic. Yeah.
Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah, it's like, that's for you. But I was looking at what would be that starting point where just get this down. And then from there, you can start building off and working on different things. So that was my original idea when I went to Andy and Jarlo with elements with that, because I was trying to reverse engineer some of these things instead of saying, okay, what's the progression towards the handstand or the progression towards this? I was saying, where do we start as humans to be able to move better so that we can do literally anything we want to do? And that was really it. Yeah.
In terms of the way I think about this is we have a fundamental patterns, the ways the body can move, squat, hinge, push, pull, there's and rotate.
Right.
That's as long as we cover all that, and you can do a program just like you said, you holding a straight arm plank, intentionally pressing the floor in isometric fashion. That's going to translate into your push-up. That's going to one day translate into your handstand push-up. It's not,
Absolutely.
you're not missing out anything. You're just making sure that when you do that handstand push-up for 2 weeks, you don't actually finish your program after 2 weeks because you hurt your shoulder. You're an ex-gymnast, right?
That's correct.
You have a lot more knowledge and understanding in the field of end range conditioning than I do. So there's a reason why gymnasts spend so much time on strengthening the end ranges of motion, so the extension and the flexion. Most gym guys, gym bros, they train where the muscles are the strongest at 65-degree angle, if I'm correct. I can't remember the study. I remember 65 degree. So yes. Bicep curl, we're doing the middle bit because it feels awesome. Exactly. If they fully lock the elbow at the bottom, they could probably not even start that weight to start to come up. Can you talk a bit more about why this is so important in strength and movement?
Yeah, absolutely. This is great. So this was, and actually, so I was very lucky with my gymnastics coach. He was actually voted best coach of the year 2 times here in the United States. And Mark Folger, he's retired now, but I first started gymnastics when I was really little and continued, and I competed all the way up until I was 18 years old. When I was about 14 or 15, I started my martial arts. So I was going to gymnastics practice and then immediately going to martial arts practice. But this in range was actually something that Mark would talk about a lot. And so during our conditioning, exactly what you said, it would be these in ranges. This is typically where people are going to be weak, but also where you find issues with the joint integrity, like we were talking about earlier. So everything from full range dips on the parallel bars, everything from not just standard handstand push-ups, but actually elevated so that when you were going down, your shoulders were touching your hands as close as possible and doing a full press back up into a handstand with scapular elevation. So reason for this, again, is we're not just trying to build these strong muscles. You're also looking at joint strength. And that was very important, along with that range of motion under load. When we put our body under load in motion, that's when we get hurt. So if we're looking at any sport that cuts, we've got rugby, we've got, here in America, they say soccer, football, you've got American football, whatever it is, when they're cutting basketball, it's not when a person is standing still that they're going to get injured. It's when they're moving their body and they're putting load on it and compromising the joint integrity in relation to the rest of the body. So this is why being able to control your body, have the proper strength, flexibility, so that when you are putting it into motion, your mobility is there as well. So gym training, I think, is fabulous. I'm not against weightlifting, but even weightlifting, I think that depending on what you're doing, that full range, I think, is good. The one caveat is, of course, if in your sport, you just need to be able to push or pull something as much power as possible, you probably don't want to load up as much as possible, go to that in range, and then try and come out from there. Of course, it's all dependent on what you're doing. But a great example would be my son right now. So he's a wrestler. Now, for my son, at his age right now, he's 16 years old. I don't want him to actually be lifting as heavy as he possibly can in the weight room and then immediately go to his wrestling practice immediately, like the same day. I would rather make sure that he's working on movements that are going to help him with that full range of motion under load by going into full range where he can control it, where he can do more repetitions rather than a single rep or 3 to 5, so that then he can transfer that into his wrestling practice during his season. Now, maybe off season, if he wants to put some weight on, yes, there's some different protocols we can use, but it's not going to benefit him if he does a 3/4 squat under load, because he needs to be able to squat ass to grass with someone on top of him and get in and out of a particular position safely. So again, the problem that we see a lot of times is we've got some really strong people in the world, but unfortunately they don't move well. And when they move, because they don't have that range of motion, this is when they're going to be getting injured. And so this is actually what we see a lot. And especially as we get older, is that if you don't use it, you lose it. That's really just what it is. Myself right now, the older I get, and I mentioned this earlier, the less I find myself doing, but the things I am doing need to benefit everything else. And that means doing movements with full range of motion at a level where I'm not putting myself in danger of possibly injuring myself under load. Currently, judo is my thing. I just absolutely love judo. And 4 days a week, that's what I do. Now, I don't do judo like I used to. But the thing of it is, because I'm getting on the mat and I'm sparring with my students and whatnot, the last thing I need to do is go to the gym and try and max out and try and be silly, is basically what I'm saying. So everything I'm trying to do right now is for my judo and making sure that I'm not going to get injured. And I think if a lot of us would try and reframe the way that we look at what we're doing and say, okay, maybe you go to the gym, maybe you enjoy lifting weights, but my question for you would be, what is that for? And of course, some people out there just simply want to look good naked. Okay, great. Okay, I think that's fabulous. But the thing of it is, it would be nice if you think about looking good naked forever and making sure you don't get injured so that you can continue to go to the gym. So what do you need to do in order to make sure that you can actually go to the gym and continue to do that? If you're doing sports, maybe you just want to be able to play with your kids or your grandkids coming up or something like that. I think that's fabulous. But I think a lot of us still have that mentality of when we were 20 years old and we used to hit it hard and lift and think it had to be a certain way. And again, I'm not saying that you shouldn't lift. I'm not saying stop doing kettlebells. I'm not saying any of that. It's just really take a step back and say, is this necessary? And something that I tell myself and also my kids, does this serve me? Does this serve me? If something just doesn't make sense to you, then don't do it. Really, it's that easy. You know what I mean? So again, I talked a lot about different stuff, but I think when you are doing something, though, I think that full range of motion is very important because, especially as we get older, it's not just about the muscles, it's that joint strength as well, joint integrity. And so, full range of motion, when we can do this in our workouts, is going to carry over for everything else that we're doing. And so, even my strength work, because I'm going full range of motion, that means that I'm going to continue to have the mobility when I'm doing other things. So my strength work isn't just about strength. It's using those particular pressing movements or whatever I'm doing in the full range to help continue to keep that mobility and that range of motion for as long as possible.
Yeah, thank you. I was just smiling because in one of our emails prior to this interview, I said they just
That's great.
came
Cool.
up organically. So that's fantastic.
Cool.
I often tell my clients, as I also have online coaching in the background, this is the age now where we don't want to exercise to get good at exercise. It's not the purpose anymore. Your life is not fulfilling you in the gym. That's not where you should reap the rewards. You should reap the rewards everywhere but in the gym, right? So I was going to ask you, what was your why? And you said it's judo.
Judo. It's judo. Of course, being able to continue to teach, that's very important for me. And so,
Sure.
sorry to interrupt you. Yeah,
No,
sorry
that's
to
okay.
interrupt you. So, I'm not interested in personal bests. I'm not really interested in proving that I don't even know. I just right now in my life, I'm fine. I've got multiple black belts and whatnot. But the thing of it is, it's like I don't care about any of that. It's never about that. For me, really, everything is about how can I get on the mat and continue just to step on the mat and to help other people. Right now in my life, that's where I am. Whereas when I was young, when I was in my 20s and 30s, still, I was competing and I was a very different person back then. Very, very
And that
extremely competitive. I would challenge anyone. And my wife, when we first met, she got really upset because I would go to, because I was doing multiple martial arts as well at that time. And so I would literally just go and just want to spar with the biggest person there. And she was like, "You got to don't do that." But then when I was, and I'm trying to think, I think it was either 32, I think I was 32 or 33 years old. My last judo competition, I got thrown and tore my shoulder, and I had a slap tear, and so that's why I have this little bolt in here, and I was done. And my wife said, "Hey, you've got a choice. You stop competing, okay, and actually, so you can continue to do it, or you can continue to compete." And I'm going to be angry at you forever. So I was like, okay, I'll stop competing. Yeah, that was my last competition. And it was really difficult for me to come out of that competitive mindset. But I've got to say, I am so much happier now. It's ridiculous. I just so much happier. But yeah, judo, that's the thing. I just absolutely love that. The judo I do is a little bit different. It's not Olympic style judo. We do a lot of groundwork and also striking components of it. But what I really like about this is the group that I have over here that I actually started is only people who are there to help each other to get better. A lot of the guys who are in my group are late 30s, 40s. A lot of people who did or maybe still doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu and just really beat up. And just their bodies are just basically not good because of all the injuries, because they weren't smart how they trained. And so they come and train with me because we train in a way where we're respectful of each other's body, if that makes sense. So we don't have a bunch of knuckleheads in there where we're just beating each other up. Teaching, I think, is a very important aspect of me. And so I want to make sure that people are doing things in a way that's good for them. So when I teach to the individual rather than the group. And depending on where you're at, I will have you do different things. We still spar, but the sparring is very different compared to a lot of other places. But I only bring this up because it's also how I teach in GMB. And even though we have these many programs that are out there, we're always trying to educate people on how to be able to make these micro adjustments according to what you need. And the one thing that's always bothered me is when I see programs out there and something's written on a piece of paper and the coach assumes that everyone should be able to do that particular thing the way that they want them to do it.
Sure.
And I think a good coach can give people really what they want. But I think a great coach, the difference is that they not only give them what they want, but more importantly, what they need. And that a lot of times, to be honest, doesn't mean more. I think a lot of times it actually, like I said earlier, is having them maybe do less with more intent in order to get a better result more easily, instead of thinking that you have to work harder. I really want people to work smarter so that they, as you mentioned, are not in the gym. I want to get a person out of there as quickly as possible so they can go and enjoy the things in their life that they want to do.
Absolutely. Let's talk about another issue that I'm seeing, not just with this demographic, but all across the board. And just wanted to ask you what you think about it and what you're seeing in your neck of the woods is how guys of, we can say our age, we have all the right to do that, getting back into a workout they remember doing 30 years ago in college or high school, skipping a very important element, the assessment. So we have a memory of what our bodies used to do, and now there's reality today. In my program, I call this the reality check. That's my assessment. Yes. And
Yes.
It's a list of simple things like getting off the floor, like no hands, getting off the floor with and back down without your hands is a very high fail rate for this age group. Very high.
Sure.
I don't even recommend that straight away unless I have a Zoom or some way of actually seeing what's going on. I can yell, please stop, don't try, because your average guy will try, even if it kills them. Just I wanted to get your opinion around the importance of assessment and really making sure that whatever program they choose, wherever they start, it fits into their reality, not in their memories of what reality was.
And a huge part of GMB, we have our AAA framework, which is part of our method. And the AAA framework is the first A is assess. And exactly what you said is we need to be realistic where we are right now. And the majority of people, exactly like you said, they have great intention in terms of wanting to get back to exercising, get back to the gym, whatever it might be. But again, like you said, they think, okay, back in my 20s, back in my 30s, this is where I was. I should be able to do this. Great example. One of the guys I do judo with, he's been doing it with me for a couple months. He wanted to get back into exercising, and so I was helping him. And he got frustrated because he wasn't able to there was a leg exercise we were doing, and he just couldn't believe he couldn't do it because back in the day he could squat X amount of pounds. And I had to remind him, I'm saying, hey, listen, man, that was then, this is now. So the assessment needs to be realistic. And I love what you said. So getting down to the ground and back up from the ground, we also have that as an assessment. And majority of people will try to do it without their hands. And I actually have people in the very beginning just do it with their hands, just in order to use that as a warm up of sorts in the beginning to see where they are. But that assessment is just so important because then the second A is you need to address what's going on. And a lot of people don't understand that what is going on in the body. They miss it because they don't have the intention and the awareness within their body. But the only way that we can get better is if we just let go of all of that and just say, right now, what's going on in my body? So when you're assessing, it's literally every single day you can use this assessment to see what's going on. So then when you address, you simply say, oh my goodness, my lower back is feeling like this, or there's a point in my back that I feel it, or oh no, I can't get off the ground without using my hands. But the important thing is to not fight it, but just to say, okay, I can't get off the ground with my hands. An assessment should be simply to see where you are so that then you can start the application, which is the third A, which is actually working towards being able to get better. And so you assess, you address, and then you apply the necessary protocol to help you to be able to get better. And then you just keep working on that. And so by doing this and using this AAA framework, next day, next week, you assess what's going on. Okay, this is what's going on. Okay, this is the adjustment I need to make in order to move forward. So it's these incremental progressions rather than trying to, earlier what we were talking about, jump up and just do the muscle up. But yes, I love that you have your reality check in there. And I like that you use reality because, again, this is what it is. And great example of this guy doing judo with me. I love this guy to death. But it is funny because he's coming into judo, having never done judo. He's a very strong guy. And he assumed right away that he should be able to do all of the stuff that we're doing. And I'm talking not just the actual judo throws, but being able to roll on the ground, being able to move on the ground, being things that kind of people get confused because they're like, why can't I? And yeah, great. That's fine. But like you said, the only thing we have is right now. And the longer that we lie to ourselves, the longer it's going to take us to actually get to where we want to go. And so when we can just let go and just say, hey, get right here and just focus on this, what's going on? It's not good. It's not bad. It just is what it is.
It is what it is. Yeah.
It is what it is. That's fine. And I was just going to say, this is what I'm always trying to focus on. Zen Buddhism for so long. And I'm just, every day, I'm just trying to tell myself that as well, because I see these changes in myself as well. Maybe you have as well. It's when I turned 53, when I turned 50, I was kind of like, okay, I'm not as maybe quick as I was, but I didn't try to train to become faster. I just said, okay, why? Why am I not as quick? Oh, it's because I'm not training this way. Okay, that's fine. And sometimes I think that we can get focused on thinking that we have to be how we were when we were in our 20s and 30s. I don't want to be like I was in my 20s and 30s. I feel great right now. And I just feel like I'm getting better in different ways and really trying to embrace that. And I think, again, it comes down to that reality check, like you said, and being able to say, okay, I can do this, I can't do that. But then also saying, do I need to be able to do that? For example, the splits. They want to, like, I want to be able to do the splits. I'm like, okay, cool. Why? And basically, it turned out that they didn't really want splits. They just wanted to improve their mobility. And so I said, that's easy. I'm not saying getting the splits is bad. If you want the splits, I can help you get the splits. But there's a huge difference between getting the splits and just having the mobility you need to be able to do the stuff in your life that you want to do. And so I think that sometimes this distorted reality of not understanding really what we want can be difficult.
Again, you made me smile on the inside. I used to be the guy who wanted to win the workout. And I love this mutual friend, Piers, in Brisbane. When I interviewed him as well, because he put it this way, when we're talking about what sort of clientele gets attracted to his facility, because the type that doesn't want to win the workout.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely gold. And I told him I'm stealing it, I'll be using it. And he goes, yeah, fine.
Yeah. I'm going to.
But I was that guy, even in my 40s, up to fighter pull-up program, 100 pull-ups a week was the minimum I had to do to feel like I deserved the next breath on this earth. couldn't accept anything less than that. And yes, I went through the same transition you were talking about. We just reached we start as an athlete and a warrior, according to Carl Jung, and then we build something of our
Yep.
lives,
Yep.
and then at the last stage, he calls the spirit phase, when you no longer worry about external stuff.
Yes.
You appreciate how things make you feel rather than how things make you look.
Yeah.
So that's very important. Got one more important topic to talk to you about is injuries, because people get a lot of different. There's two schools of thoughts, right? You rest, do nothing, says one type of clinician or practitioner, and the people who have the injury, they instinctively feel that the best thing I can do is nothing, because then it won't get worse. Now we have a more recent school of thought is you have to move immediately, because the loss of range of motion, the neurological deterioration of the area starts immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you don't address that, you're going to have a huge loss of movement and a longer path to recovery. So what is your take on this?
Yeah, it's very interesting that you bring this up. So I had some really major injuries that you might know about, but I mentioned the shoulder. My other major injury was my ankle. And so when I fell, the ankle broke to the outside, my foot completely spun around. But when I had my surgery, I had a plate, 7 screws on one side and 2 screws on the other. That was the sort of thing where in Japan, when I had the surgery, is fabulous, absolutely fabulous. My surgeon was amazing. She was actually a martial artist herself. And so she could relate to my feelings of wanting to get back on the mat. In my case, they actually did have me working on moving around a little bit as soon as possible. We're not talking though like the next day or anything. With major surgery, major injuries like that, of course, you've got to let the healing process at least start. But as soon as possible, they got me into rehabilitation. In Japan, it's a required thing. And I went for 3 months. And I just remember, thanks to that, the work that I was doing there, the mobility work, range of motion, but not only that, my surgeon said it as well. The sheer fact that I already had great range of motion, that I was healthy, moved well, of course, helped. But I do see people, though, who, like you mentioned, they kind of give up. There are certain injuries where they might be better to move and get to work on that. I think, though, the main thing I want to say, of course, is I'm not a doctor. I'm not a physical therapist. First and foremost, get it checked out. Have someone who's a professional look at it and get advice from them. But I think that the one thing is, and this is where I'm trying to answer the question without, but is that for the people that completely stop and say, I'm not going to do anything, I think it can be good, but I also think it can be bad. And the reason is this: some people just need a rest. That maybe they were actually going too hard, too long, too fast. And being able to actually take a break, I think, when we get injured is good, because there's 2 ways we can look at it. We can say, oh, woe is me, and cry about it. Or we can say, okay, this sucks. This happened. What am I going to do about it now? And I think that when we can do that, we can do exactly what we were talking about earlier, where we assess and we say, all right, what do I now need to do? And maybe it was different from the thing that you were doing before. And so I think sometimes, unless you're very set on exactly what you need to be doing, when a person gets an injury, a lot of times they realize that, okay, I could have actually been doing this training differently. Therefore, what do I need to do now? And I'm not just talking about rehabilitation. I'm talking about There might be a place in your body where when you're injured, it's a good opportunity for you to say, oh, you know what? I hurt my shoulder. This is a good opportunity for me to work on my leg mobility, ankle flexion, whatever, an opportunity to be able to do something. But along the same lines of looking at why did you get injured? Truly, what sort of injury was this? Was it because you were silly and you just jumped up and did muscle ups before you were supposed to be doing muscle ups? Or was it something where it's an ongoing thing, right? For example, you have your elbow and you know it's been weird, but then you're doing something and it just, you hurt it. You really hurt it compared to the elbow hurts, but it's actually an issue with your bicep because it's shoulder related. So what I'm just basically trying to say here is that I think depending on the injury, moving it can be good as long as your physio or your doctor says it is. But again, always assessing, doing that reality check. Make sure you're doing something that's actually going to help you. And it's not just something you want, but something you actually need to be doing. Now, on the other side, I've seen people who are injured. Another guy who's coming to judo right now, and he rolled his ankle at a different place. He was training in a different place and he rolled his ankle. It was bad, really bad. He just taped it up and he kept going. And it keeps getting worse and it keeps getting worse. But he's got to train. He's just got to train because it'll get better over time. And I'm like, it's not going to get better, man. It's going to get worse. We have sometimes these extremes. I think, though, again, coming back to what I said and what you have in your book, that reality check is so important. And it's not just when you start a program. It's literally, like I said, every single day. How do you feel today? What's going on in your body? Assessing the situation. If you rolled your ankle and you have an ankle sprain, okay, it might be good for you to move it around. But is it good enough for you to tape it and go running? I don't know. But generally, I don't know about you, but generally the people, in fact, 100% of the people that I'm training right now are not professional athletes. Take a little bit of a break, figure out how it is, and then just reflect and say, all right, how bad is this? Get it looked at if you want to move it around. But I think a lot of us know, again, it comes back to the assessment where we might still be thinking that we're in our 20s. And it's sort of like when I was in my 20s in Japan, I could eat anything, drink anything, and the next day wake up and I was still ripped. And so things change a little bit as we get older.
That's it.
But yeah, coming back to what you said, I do know that there are two kind of different views right now, depending on the injury. Don't do anything compared to, hey, immediately start moving it, because if you don't, it's going to be horrible. But I really just think everything is relevant in terms of knowing exactly what happened, what, and the severity of that thing, of course.
Yeah, makes sense. Absolutely. I do love my strength cycle, my deadlift and a military barbell press and Zercher squat, and I love doing those, but I never skip the floor-based movement like the bear, monkey, whatever else I do, Turkish get-ups, whether with kettlebell or without, as a warm-up, because I find that the major issue with weight training is that you don't expose your body to all dimensions of movement, and you don't expose your joints into full flexion extension the same way you would do with the floor-based program. So both need, it's okay to work on either as the main focus, but it can be beneficial to incorporate some of the other stuff for muscle mass and whatnot.
I totally agree. Right now, as a matter of fact, just last week, I started, for me, some things I'm working on, getting back to heavy deadlifts, as well as weighted dips, and also weighted chin-ups are other things I'm doing. But I think that just what you said, I think there is, and I like that you didn't say balance, because do what you want to do. I think it's great, but then also understand that doing the ground-based things, the mobility is only going to make that better. And I think it
Yeah.
works the opposite as well. And I see people who are like, weightlifting is bad or whatever. Okay. But I think everything can actually help the other thing, as long as, again, you have your why and it makes sense for you to be able to do that. So I love that you were saying you still like your heavy stuff. And so I was kind of laughing because, yeah, I just got back into that last week as well. Yeah.
Right. Hey, Ryan, I understand you also work on a book, or is it finished now? Is it out?
It is. The book actually came out on October 27th.
Congratulations.
Three years to the day that we came to the United States.
Okay.
And it was, what's a good way to say this? Writing the book was more kind of therapy for me because my time coming to the United States was so challenging. And so the book is all about overcoming challenges, and it's actually a 12-week program. There are exercises in it, but what it does is it's looking at posture, breath, and mindset, and how they all work together in order to help you with literally everything that you're doing in your life. And so, in order to bring better awareness to your posture, to your breath, and to your mindset, each week has one movement that you do. And we talk about the posture for that particular movement. Because a lot of people, when you say posture, they think it's just straight up and down. But there's posture for everything. You're not going to have the same posture for your deadlift that you're going to do for your back squats.
Yeah.
And again, it's not a workout. It's simply to be used so that you can reflect on the particular cue that I give you. And so, for example, the very first week, the exercise is meditation. And so it's actually helping to learn how to sit and do nothing and just focus on the breath. And unfortunately, not a lot of us can do that these days
No.
and then it ramps up. So like the second week, you're walking. So let's go out and walk. And I have a free online week by week course that goes with the book where I do a video and you can see how we're doing this. And it's all in the book, but I also wanted to include some videos to help people, but gradually working on moving forward. And so, for example, one of the movements in there is farmer walks, heavy farmer walks. I use kettlebells, but
Yep.
looking at the cue for that is, what burden are you willing to carry? And thinking about this in your life. And Monday, you're looking at in your work life, and then Tuesday in your family life. And so each day, the focus is a little bit different, but it's still looking at that question. And so the reason I did that was because this is what I actually used to help me to stay calm with all the crazy stuff that was happening when I moved here in the United States. So it's called On the Mat Forever.
On the mat, yes. I will get a copy.
I'll send you a
Oh,
copy.
thank you. Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, another story just came to my mind. Cameron Quinn, I don't know if the name
Yes.
was
Yes.
he's in my book, his story.
Yes.
I
Yes.
Interviewed him. It turned out we lived in the same town for years
Yeah. That's crazy.
on
Yeah. Yes.
Tambourine Mountain. I had no idea.
So cool. So cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. I'm really glad we got to do this because
Thank you for having me. Yeah. And letting me just
so
ramble.
much awesomeness that you talked about. And obviously, you've got so many years of experience in both working on yourself and working to help other people. What's your greatest achievement? What do you consider your greatest achievement,
My
kids?
kids. Yeah, I'm lucky. Yeah, I have great kids. I really do. That's why we moved to the United States, is so they could experience not just life overseas, but also work on their English. And so they obviously grew up in Japan. My wife is Japanese,
So,
and the primary language in our house is Japanese. And even though when they were growing up, I spoke English, they would only speak to me in Japanese. Now that they're in high school, I wanted them to come to the United States. And I say my greatest accomplishment is that, just because everything that I've really done in my life, I've realized that let's just be honest, for all of us, it's a selfish thing. But I'm very happy I did it because I've had these experiences. And having the opportunity to work with a lot of different people, learn from different people, it's helped me to be able to try and be a good dad for them. And I bring that up just because I think it's really important that when we're working out, when we're in our jobs and doing that, that we need to be selfish in order to better ourselves. But I think that the ultimate thing is for the service of others. And in my case, like my kids, it's always been about my kids. In Japan, it's very common for the father not to be around because he's working. The United States as well. And I never wanted to be that dad. And we moved over here. My goal is to be at every single one of my kids' events. And I think that's just pretty important. And so, again, in life, that's my why. That's why I work out. That's why I do the things that I do. And I said judo, but honestly,
Oh, we
it's
found a
so
deeper why now, didn't we?
we did. We just found we went deep there. Yeah.
Love it.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Yeah.
Oh,
So,
it was
yeah.
heaps of fun, Ryan. Thank you. We'll stay in touch. Have a great weekend.
Okay. Likewise. Thank
Yeah.
you. Bye bye.